Can anybody out there hear us? There's a chat box in the bottom right. Feel free to type in there. We'll wait a couple more minutes for others to join. It's like we're getting some response, I think. Oh, okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, so it looks like they're able to hear. We'll wait just one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, perfect. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. All right. Well, first off, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. I hope you all are fresh off the Easter holiday and spring break, but we understand, certainly there's finals and graduation coming up next month, so I'm sure things are pretty hectic for everyone. So again, thank you for taking time out of your day. In terms of some announcements before we start, I believe we have this webinar scheduled for I think an hour. We don't anticipate it lasting that long. We're thinking more along the lines of 30 to 45 minutes, and then a Q&A session for 15 minutes afterwards. I did want to point it out. I did mention it a little bit earlier. I'm not sure if anybody heard, but there is a chat box, and a couple of you have already typed into it in the lower right corner. So feel free to ask questions at any point in time during the presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end where we will be able to answer those questions. And I've already gotten a couple of folks reach out to me asking about a recording of the session. So we'll go ahead and send that after the webinar is completed. Over the past few years, we've seen really something new happening in higher education. And, we've heard from leaders at rural two-year colleges in the Southeast. We've heard from leaders at liberal arts colleges. We've heard from leaders at four-year universities in cities on the West Coast. And we've heard from HBCUs and HSIs. And there seems to be a pretty universal goal in that, we need to engage and retain our students. And so we're here because we've seen an evolving student population, including an increase in the non-traditional students, and identifying those at-risk students and engaging those at-risk students. We're also here because we understand that the student engagement piece can act as a proxy for retention as well as the health of an institution. And finally, we're here because of this growing need to measure student outcomes in response to the performance-based funding model that's been spreading across the country. A few months ago, I actually visited one of our partner colleges in Texas, and I spoke with the language arts tutoring coordinator, the director of the learning center there, as well as some of the others on the staff. And you could really feel the frustration they were having with the current methods that they had for reaching out to their students. And they expressed this desire to be able to reach out to the students where they are at the right time in order to increase the engagement. And so that's why we believe that student engagement would be the most helpful topic to talk about today. So in terms of an agenda that we have set, I figured we can start off by first introducing ourselves. We'll go over really kind of why Upswing exists and what our mission and goal is, and then talk a little bit about some of the conversations we've had with administrators from across the country and heard some of the challenges that they've had with the student engagement in their learning center and even online as well. Then we'll talk a little bit about what Upswing's approach is to addressing these challenges that the schools are facing with the engagement. And finally, as I mentioned before, we'll go ahead and conclude with a Q&A session. So in terms of introductions, I'll go ahead and start by introducing myself. Then I'll let Victoria and Naomi kind of talk a little bit about their story with Upswing. So my name is Brent Hammett. I'm on the marketing team here at Upswing, and you probably received an email from me with the link to joining this webinar. So thank you for joining. Really, what my main goal with Upswing is to talk to different administrators from across the country, kind of hear what some of the challenges they face are, hear what some of the problems they've come face to face with, and then try to advise or offer different solutions and best practices that we've heard from other colleges and solutions that Upswing has to offer as well. And so Victoria?
Yeah, hey guys, Victoria Alonzo. I am the Director of Retention here, and I've been working with Upswing over the past year, really guiding admins in their mission to retain students and further their academic goals and aspirations. So now to introduce Naomi.
Hey everyone, my name is Naomi. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Upswing, and my day-to-day here is just really working with all of the teams and building initiatives and how we can build engagement within all of our users at Upswing.
Cool. And so one question I wanted to start off with, Victoria, is really how does your role, how do you feel like your role impacts retention?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Brent. Really what we do, we want to see what's really important for our partners, and we actually give them a report card at the end of the year. The report card will have data insights, which data is found on our dashboard. And what the data will have on that report card would be what is important to the school. So for example, it could be maybe how GPAs correlate with Upswing or how many unique logins there are. And we really want to make sure that we're working towards each partner's goals of how many students they want to retain by the end of the year.
Naomi, I guess the same question goes to you. How do you feel like your role impacts retention?
Yeah, so I lead the community engagement team, and we're actually a newly formed team that's really focused on placing a concerted effort on building engagement with our coaches, our students, and our admins. We also manage the network of Upswing coaches that we have. So our coaches are, for many students that are on the platform, the first line of interacting with Upswing and the reason why they might have a good experience or come back to use us. So we have a lot of experience in engaging our team of coaches, and now we're trying to reflect some of those successful initiatives towards engaging more students or providing more support to our admins so that we can build engagement really organically and really intentionally.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that leads really well into what Upswing's overall vision is. A little while ago, we actually came up with this what we call our 2020 vision. And that goal is for Upswing to be able to help colleges and universities retain 50,000 students by the year 2020. And so far, we've actually managed to help colleges and universities retain 5,600 students since 2014. And what we've seen is that this number is growing quite exponentially because we've actually doubled the number of partners we've had each year since 2014. So we're definitely excited to be able to achieve this goal. Of course, we understand that with a large mission and a large vision, there's going to be some challenges and obstacles along the way. And so what I wanted to kind of start off with was actually play a snippet of a webinar that we had last month with a couple of our partner schools or a couple representatives there. And I guess the recording I'd like to play is a couple minutes from what Kim Pfeiffer McGee, she's the director of the Division of Extended Studies at North Carolina Central University, what she had to say about some of the challenges that they face there at NCCU. So I'll go ahead and actually play that 2-minute clip to kind of start off and hear what those challenges are.
A large number of our students
have to work. And so there is that. How do you balance school,
work,
home life,
and
make all of that work so that they can
be
in the classroom and matriculate in a timely manner through their programs. So it's often a challenge for us to make sure that we are providing the correct services, as well as providing them in the right format, so that they are accessible at various times throughout the day so that each of our students can have an opportunity to access these services without having to be put to that hole of needing to be at, let's say, a tutoring center before 6 or 7 p.m., something like that. So that has been the most challenging piece for us, just making sure that we have the right services delivered in the right modality and at the right time, so that our students can take advantage of them. We have for years provided a number of services, but as our population begins to grow and to change, that whole traditional student, what's the age now? So as we're seeing students coming in for the first time at about 22 or 24, we are learning that we have to adapt to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all our students, whether it's a traditional 18-year-old or that working adult who is coming back to the campus for school.
All right, so I did see there were a couple of comments about a huge echo, but really, kind of what Kim was touching on was really that shift again to the non-traditional students and being able to reach them, in the right place at the right time. And I was curious to, and this is a question probably for Victoria, about what additional challenges that you've heard of in your experience with talking with different partner colleges. What are some of the challenges that you've heard of?
Yeah, thanks, Brent. Obviously, I work hand in hand with our partners here at Upswing, and there are two big main challenges that I've seen across board. And the number one thing is, students don't want to ask for help because they fear of being embarrassed. That's the number one thing that they see, that other schools see in their learning centers. And the next trend that we saw was learning centers, as the year progresses, they'll see an influx of students needing help only when finals come around. And so, that's what our hero team is here for. We want to make sure that students are using and engaging into our platform year after year, no matter if it's finals, midterms, or they're leaving for winter break.
Gotcha. Yeah. So and so with with all of these challenges, Upswing, what we did was we came up with a 3-prong approach to try to figure out, how is it that we can tackle, some of these challenges that colleges are facing. And this 3-prong approach that we came up with was what we call reach, relate, and retain. So the one that we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about that pertains mostly to the engagement side is the first step, which is reach. So we'll go ahead and so, because of, as I mentioned before, because of the increase in some of the non-traditional students who have these different needs, our hypothesis to begin with was, that we could increase the engagement by moving from the traditional email outreach or kind of a build it and they will come type channel or model, and switch that and move it over to a more proactive outreach. And so what we've seen is that the average student engagement among the Upswing partners has been 15% through the Upswing platform and 7% with direct engagement with the Learning Center. And so, after coming up with this hypothesis, we had to put a plan in place and some initiatives in place. And so, kind of how we plan on helping increase the engagement and the retention is we work hand in hand with different partners to customize an engagement strategy that's composed of 3 components, which is our hero program, the campus ambassadors, and then a proactive targeted outreach. So I'd be curious to know, I know, Victoria, you deal more along the sides of the heroes and the campus ambassadors. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that program is and kind of how it relates to impacting engagement and retention.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brim, for that. So to give you guys a little background of who the heroes are, HERO is an acronym, and it stands for Higher Education Retention Officer, and we are your appointed account managers here at Upswing. As you can see on the screen, some of the main things that we do is onboarding and implementation. We do have an implementation team that really works hand in hand with our admins or the school IT's team to make sure that we're either implementing through Canvas or Blackboard, whatever is easiest for the students. We want to make sure that we implement it in that way. Product questions. If any of our partners have any of product questions, we handle those. And most importantly, any feature requests. Really, Upswing cannot be Upswing if we don't get the feedback from our partners of what type of features they would like to see in our dashboard. Retention insights is one of the #1 things that our admins love about our dashboard. We do have a data analytics dashboard on the Upswing site where they could see exactly what happens, who the students meeting with, how long they were in there, did the student attend there, and then we also have them give feedback on our Upswing partners or on our Upswing tutors, as well as we have our tutors giving feedback on the student as well. We also do have an in-house data scientist who will be able to kind of correlate the Upswing usage with, are the students getting higher grade point average with using Upswing. A really cool story that we had here actually a couple of weeks ago. One of our schools, obviously they gave us their data and their information, but what we found out was they took developmental math from the school, and they were non-Upswing users. 35% of them passed, whereas once they were using Upswing, they had 100% of that developmental math course pass. So it was pretty amazing to see that the Upswing users that were using Upswing had more passing grades to that. To touch a little bit on our campus ambassadors, we do have a program coordinator who will help with the user engagement, marketing to students and faculty, and then we have the campus ambassadors. Well, we will find that dedicated person on campus. Typically, it will be an influential person on campus that everyone knows, and they'll help us promote Upswing. They'll table. We'll obviously give them marketing materials, but they are that go-to person on campus. And to touch a little bit on some impact stories. Another one we have, obviously you guys can see Wallace State here. They were really struggling in the beginning. We turned on our asynchronous side of things, which is called, Ask Up, and they went from, using about, 30 hours to 100 hours within 2 to 3 weeks. What they did is they had an English instructor talk to all of her classes about Upswing and about Ask Up. And once the students understood and once the students knew that, hey, Upswing's here to help, it's nothing too scary, we had the students actually go back on their own. Another really cool story from North Carolina A&T Technical University. They set up everything actually earlier this year. After a week and a half after their setup, their admin sent out an email to faculty, sent an email out to students as well about Upswing, and immediately after that email went out, their admin began getting an influx of emails from their faculty. The faculty were very involved in wanting to know a little bit more about Upswing and how they could promote it. So, we gave them those ideas, and after giving them those ideas, within the next couple of days, their usage went up and their engagement went up from 0 to 20 hours. So it was really cool to see that. And obviously, as you guys can see, the trend here is really getting faculty involved. I know Naomi has a couple of stories of her own as well, so I will pass it along to her.
Sure, Victoria, thank you. So we do have a story from Palm Beach State College, and I kind of came in later on in this discussion, but to provide some context, we had a discussion with Palm Beach in about mid-January where they discussed their disappointment in their system usage. So as a follow-up to that discussion, we scheduled training with their learning center coordinators and administrators in 5 of their locations and really encouraged them to get their faculty educated on the system, which they did. The school was also kind of disappointed in the lack of traction they had in TutorUp, which is our product where schools bring their own tutors on. So we encouraged them to do some training with us with a couple of their key tutors. And as a result of that, they doubled their session usage in less than 3 months. So I kind of came on as a follow-up to that discussion where they were talking about how useful that training was and if we could do a larger training where I would go out and I managed our Upswing coaches here where we train them on virtual learning and how to be an effective supplemental tool in a virtual learning environment. So we opened the discussion about having us go out and do a half-day training with multiple tutors, so about 25, and being able to kind of provide that customized support for them has led them to consider expanding their usage to their entire college and adding on other additional services as well. And just to provide another story from the opposite end of the spectrum, we had Laredo Community College who had a lot of usage on a lot of their products. So they had a lot of TutorUp usage, which is their tutors using our platform, but I was really interested in how they used our asynchronous service. So our asynchronous service is where a student submits an assignment and they receive a review back on that writing assignment from a coach. And I spoke with Laredo's tutor coordinator who told us that the faculty was really on board with using Upswing, and especially their language arts department. They have a huge ESL demographic, and one of their their language arts instructors actually requires each student, every time they have a writing assignment, to turn in their original copy, their review from an Upswing coach, and then their final draft. And what she's really grading these students on is not if they're writing the best paper possible, but if they're able to turn those revisions into a final draft and improve their writing ability. So that was just a really interesting way of using our asynchronous service. And that really follows our philosophy of meeting the student where they are and encouraging them to improve their ability from where they started. So that is our coaching philosophy kind of in a nutshell, and I'll keep moving on and talk about our coaches because that's part of our proactive targeted outreach. Again, as I mentioned earlier, they're kind of that first line for students when they're interacting with Upswing looking for a tutor. And we do have a really stringent recruiting and vetting application process, but we also do a 30-minute Skype interview with each applicant that wants to join our coaching team. And so our entire coach management team kind of meets with every person. And the reason we do this is that relationship building to us is really the essence of that coach-student engagement. And we want to know that this applicant understands that they can provide a really comforting atmosphere. And our make it or break it question for them is really, how do you engage a student that might be intimidated coming to tutoring, who might not be able to use tech or be familiar with tech, or whose language is not English. And so the answers that we're really looking for is that the coach will try to build a relationship, try to get to know the student and why they're there, and go from there. So that's really the type of people that we want on our team and the type of people that we hire to be on our team. And then, of course, Socratic methodology is what our tutors use. And again, that's really just building that relationship, questioning the student and getting them to talk through how to find the answers that they need. So that's our coaching side of things, but in terms of reaching students in other ways, we really rely on our metrics. So we work with our data team and our data scientists, and what we do is we pull login metrics. So the way that we look at logins is that we want to make sure that a student is logging in more than 3 times, because that means that they're coming back to Upswing. And then our data scientist has analyzed these numbers and provided a really awesome chart for us, and let us know, the engagement team know, based on the school size and where they are in their contract, if the login number for each week is where it should be, or if it's below, or if it's doing great. So that's how we know whether to reach out. And our reach out strategy right now focuses on both students and admins. So we can either send customized emails to the students and help them log in, or we can really talk with the hero team and do a call together and see if we can provide some customized support. So the long-term plan is to be able to scale these initiatives as we grow, but right now we're in a place where we can really customize towards what every individual partner needs. And as we're talking about customization and reaching individuals' needs, this is where we've learned to develop other products that address that. So Anna is our text message-based virtual assistant. It's a mouthful. Has really come into reaching our students and building engagement. So what Anna does is thinks directly with classroom syllabi and provides reminders to students about upcoming assignments, and even provides additional information they might need as a student through text messaging, which is how a lot of students are communicating these days.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Naomi. Thanks for that. And one key thing that I found to be kind of a theme in that is that, building that good relationship with the student, really kind of gets them to interact with the tools, with the services, and really kind of helps drive that engagement. And that Anna product that you mentioned, it sounds like it's like one method to to build that relationship and to get to talk to the student where they're most comfortable with, which is at that text-based. And I know one additional thing about Anna is that it certainly can help provide that FAFSA support as well for financial aid, providing reminders for when that FAFSA deadline is. It can also help the students with scheduling online tutoring sessions, as you mentioned, with the syllabi being uploaded, and knowing when the students' tests are coming up. Being able to reach out to students, remind them of an upcoming exam, and be able to offer, them the service for online tutoring before that exam, can really, provide that boost to their engagement. And in addition to that, also allowing the students to be able to schedule online advising as well as sentiment capture. So thanks for that, Naomi. And what I wanted to do now is take a little break. And what we have is, if you look at the screen, it says to text "Hey Anna" to this number. So if anybody out there has their cell phones on them, feel free to pull them out right now, and text the number on the screen, which is 415-877-9464, or the easy way to remember that is 415 Upswing. And I'll give you guys just a second to text that number. And what you're texting is actually a demo of the Anna tool that Upswing offers. And so you'll be able to play around with, learning more about Upswing, learning more about Anna, and kind of seeing how that interaction would look for your students and Anna. So just a couple more seconds, and then I'll go ahead and kind of move on. I wanted to give everybody a chance to play around with it. All right, and then, so as I mentioned before, Anna is really meant to engage the students really from the first time they step on campus all the way through graduation. So Anna's there for every step of the way, and so that includes things, as I mentioned before, to send out reminders for when class registration is, a class beginning date, exams and finals, and then also when tuition is due. But then also, as I mentioned, if the student is kind of struggling, and they need some more kind of emotional support for their experience. Because we know that what we've learned is that students drop out, not primarily it's for academic reasons, but also in addition to that, more of this feeling of detachment or this not emotionally connected to the institution. And so the student would be able to schedule the advising session with the college advisors, and be able to get that emotional support that they need. And then in terms of results and impact that we've seen so far with Anna, is we've actually seen the engagement rate climb up to 70%. You might recall I mentioned earlier that the Learning Center student engagement that we've seen and heard from is about 7%, and then Upswing's platform 15%. And what we've seen with Anna has climbed 70%. So students, really prefer texting. They do it on a daily basis. It's easy, it's convenient, and it's a good way to reach out to them that we've found. And finally, just wanted to kind of conclude with just what the overall Upswing student service platform, and tying Anna into that platform. So as I mentioned, Anna would be able to help students schedule an online tutoring session, whether that be with one of your tutors or with one of Upswing's tutors. That's entirely possible. Or if the student wants to meet with one of your advisors online, they would be able to do that through Anna, and it connects to the Upswing student service platform for them to be able to do that. And that information, gets captured all through on the back end. So one thing I wanted to bring up as well is, while we're on the topic of Learning Center engagement, we've discussed, Anna, we've discussed a couple of the engagement strategies from Naomi, as well as Victoria before. I'm curious to know a little bit more about what the impact is, and it looks like there's a slide here on one. It looks like one of the institutions. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the impact we've seen at this particular institution, from you, Victoria.
Yeah, absolutely. As you guys can see, it goes from 2015 to current, which is 2018. In 2015, we're looking at single digits, where there really was not that much engagement from the Learning Center. Where now in 2018, it's gone up tremendously, about 46%. It's pretty insane. I love to see things like that, of that sort. And Brent, if you go over to the next slide, we have another story as well. West Georgia Tech. I work hand in hand with this school, with this admin. And as you can see again on the chart here, there's three main things that we were monitoring, which is higher engagement, who's more cost effective, and better persistence. And as you guys can take a look at the numbers, it's gone up 20% within the past couple of years. And from these stats, which we do give all of our schools these type of stats, WGCT or TC has recently decided to renew their contract with Upswing because we're able to tell them this kind of data insight.
Cool. All right, so that really concludes, some of the initial conversation on the Learning Center engagement. So what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up. It doesn't look like we've had questions thus far, but I wanted to kind of give everyone a moment, if they did have any questions, to please go ahead and type it in the chat box in the bottom right. We'll go ahead and do our best to answer those. So I'll just give you all a couple seconds to see if anybody has any. All right, looks like Beth asked a little bit about the cost of the services. That's a very good question. So what I can tell you is that our tutoring, the tutoring sessions with Upswing's tutors that Naomi was talking a little bit about earlier, that's just a flat rate of $23 an hour. So that's the cost of the Upswing tutors. Now, in terms of pretty much any of the other services like on some of the early alerts or some of the other services that Upswing offers. We, typically will talk on a, on a school by school basis about, how we can customize a package for you, what the needs are there, and then we can, provide the more specific cost at that point. All right, I'll give just another minute, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right, so I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and just conclude there. And as I mentioned earlier on, all right, it looks like we got a question here from Marita. What direct role does the classroom instructor play?
That's a really great question. One of the things that we have our admins do at the beginning of each semester, obviously faculty come in a little bit before the students, and they will host a training session for their admins. Our heroes can go on site to do that as well for them, or sometimes the admins like to take control as well and train their faculty on that. Another thing that comes in play, which is huge, is putting Upswing on their syllabuses. Making sure that students are required to use Upswing. Once they're able to do something like that, then you guys will definitely see engagement peak very high.
Yeah, and just to add in on that, we've seen directly that when instructors do play a role in encouraging their students to seek out help on Upswing, whether it's through their tutors or our tutors, that's where it comes from, that encouragement on that end, so that the students know, okay, in this class, I know I can go and look for this class on Upswing. Coming from the coaching side, I think one of the biggest questions I have is how do the instructors the instructors have questions about how our tutors will kind of lean in towards the way that they're teaching and how they can not implement their own teaching style into the students that come in. And that's where Socratic methodology comes in. And our tutors really start from, where have you started? What do you already know about what you're doing? And build on from there.
All right, great. So if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'll go ahead and send out a recording of this webinar to all the attendees as well as others. But again, I want to thank you all for again taking time out of your day to join us. So thanks everyone.